Business owners, if you feel like you're working too hard and you're not getting the results for how much you're putting in, then this is going to be the episode for you. We're talking about how to reach business mastery faster. Now, if you couldn't learn any new skill sets, okay, I just make that all go away. And you could only grab from your current database, your current, just like what's in your brain, what you've learned at previous conferences, podcasts, you name it. Could you do it? You have so much information sitting right inside here that you already know. How much money could you make if you just implemented what you already know? A lot, right? So we're going to talk about what that looks like. So I recently had somebody join Well-Oiled Operations, which is our bestseller. It is something that we help business owners increase their profit margins while decreasing the time spent. And we had this business owner, we qualify everybody that comes into the program. So we are positive there's something for them that they're going to benefit. They're going to see a return. And we had somebody recently ask for a refund and say, I've gone through the program and it is very newbie. There was nothing in there I didn't already know. And I'm like, hold up, let's just double check. And the reason I really was thinking something's off is because we rarely hear that. In fact, sometimes we hear, this is so advanced. Could you break it down even more? One of the things that we're doing right now, we just broke up module like 1 or something, I think maybe like 1.7 or something like that. We just broke up one piece of module 1 into 4 weeks of like what I would do week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, because people were like, this is so advanced, I'm not getting it. And we're like, hold up. So we made it even easier. So it's rare that we have people say it's newbie. We usually have people say it's really advanced. Can you help me break it down? So before we just gave a refund, I'm like, let's dig a little here. Let me find out like what she already has. Like, so I started to ask things like, well, can I see your org chart? Something we teach in the program. Can I see your KPIs for your team members? Can I see who's on your team? Right? I started asking all of these questions, and surprise, surprise, she didn't have a lot of it done. So she knew of the content. She heard some of the content before, but she doesn't implement the content. And that's a problem. And here's the thing. Maybe you have heard of some of this before. Maybe you already knew some of this before, but why haven't you done it yet? And a big reason people haven't done it is because they don't know how. And that was one of the things I said, this is what we teach in the program is how to do it. So if you are being held back for some reason, you haven't implemented all of the stuff that you supposedly already knew. What if we spent the 6 months implementing it? What if we helped hold you accountable to get it done? Would that be valuable? And here's the deal. Do you really know something if you haven't actually done it? Does that make sense? So if you've never, let's say you've never learned to ride a bike, but you know, like you hold on to the handlebars and you use your feet to pedal, right? And you got to balance. You might know how to do it, but until you get on that bike and feel the off balance, right? Or when you brake and you realize how sensitive the brake is, right? You don't really know it until you do it. So a lot of times people think they know stuff, but I really want to question you, how well do you actually know it, right? And knowledge, it's only power if you use it. If you keep it in your head, it's not valuable. So repetition is key. When I am at an event, and trust me, there is definitely times where I'm like, yep, I know that. Yep, I've heard that, right? If I have heard it, here's what I train myself to do. I go, how well am I doing at that? Where would I rate myself right now? 1 to 10. There's usually always an area of opportunity. Another thing I ask myself is, am I even implementing it yet, right? And sometimes I go, thank you for the reminder. Okay, I know it, still not doing it. Thanks for the reminder, right? Get my butt in gear and let's get going here. So what you have to understand is business mastery is repetition. It's practice. It's trying something and then trying it again, right? It's hiring somebody, doing a horrific job, letting in somebody with all these red flags, and then you wait too long to fire them, but then you finally fire them and you probably do that wrong. And then you go back and you try it again. And then you hire a little bit better. And then you don't need to fire because they're actually pretty decent, right? There's all these things, but it takes time. So mastery is 10,000 hours, right? And you might think, oh, well, I've been in business for 10,000 hours. Well, maybe, but there's a sales skill that you need to learn. Have you done 10,000 hours of sales? Have you done 10,000 hours of marketing? Have you done 10,000 hours, right? And all of a sudden you're like, this is why business is harder for me. I'm not focusing and dialing in on certain skill sets. And it's so funny because as a child, we used to learn a lot of stuff, right? We didn't know how to walk. We didn't know how to talk. We didn't know how to play that new sport, right? Maybe your passion, something you played or you did in middle school or grade school, wherever, you did it for years and years and years. There was a day though, you didn't know how to do that. But as children, we were willing to learn. We were willing to suck, willing to try again, like get back up, dust ourselves off and do it again. But as adults, we have this expectation, we have this entitlement, like this should be easier. Why do I have to do this? I feel like I've been in business long enough that I shouldn't have to. And that's just not how this works. We become less willing, right? And sometimes we need to hear things over and over and over again, right? If you haven't done that thing yet, but you've heard it 17 times, ask yourself, what's going on? Why are you allowing yourself to not move forward? Okay, so here is a Harvard study. They said they found a simple truth. Managers who were deliberately redundant moved their projects forward faster and more smoothly. Managers who were deliberately redundant. What does that mean? Repetition. Okay, you need repetition. Your team needs repetition. Okay, now before I head into our next tip, I want to make sure you heard we are currently accepting applications for our Powerhouse Mastermind. We open these up a few times a year, really making sure that you can get in for our cutoff or our deadline for our next in-person retreat, which is coming up. So if you are somebody who is already at multiple six figures a year, you have a team of 3 or more people, you are shooting for at least a 7-figure or multiple 7-figure or maybe even higher. We have some 8-figure business owners in there. If you are a go-getter and you have big goals for next year, consider applying. Go to smallbusinesspowerhouse.com or DM me the word mastermind on Instagram at Stacy Tuschl, and I'll send you all of the details. All right. So I want to talk about why I intentionally, like on purpose, why I rinse and repeat. Okay. So you're in a different place. You have maybe a different staff. Maybe you have different cash flow. Every time you hear something, but you listen to it in 3 months and 6 months and a year, right? You're just in a different spot. So anytime I'm consuming, it always feels like I am drinking water out of a fire hose. I just can't catch it all, right? So if I reconsume something down the road, I'm going to catch more the next time. It is also going to be mastery. So one of the best things that I think I ever did was in the beginning of my business, I stayed with my first coach for 8 years. Okay. I really didn't know there were like other coaches that existed. So that's probably why. But to me, I also had so much more to learn from him. And I went to the same conference year after year after year. Every summer, I went to his exact conference. The content did not change. It was like 90% the same stuff, down to like his jokes when he would laugh. Like it was that scripted, but it was so good. And I got so much out of it. And I will tell you, I think one of the reasons I grew so fast in the beginning and how I hit $1 million a year business so quickly is because every year I was stronger and I could hear the next thing that I didn't hear the year before, right? Even though it was the same conference, even 8 years in, I had a ton of notes. And I think that world is just gone. People don't think to go to the same event. People don't think to stick around with the same mentor. I have had some crazy testimonials. I'm talking people that have said, like they've made, $1 million because of me. They've made 500,000. They've 5x their business. I've literally had somebody say, how do I say this? Like give you credit for like where my business is like ended. Like you've done everything for me. People have said some crazy stuff. And then they say, but I think it's time to find a new room. And I'm always like, wait, what? Wait a minute. You just told me I 5x'd your business and you're going to find a different room next year. Like I get so confused when that happens. And it's the shiny object syndrome. It's the, okay, great, thanks. I got it all. Let me go here, right? And there is this power of rinsing and repeating and getting it better every time. Like mastery is not shiny object syndrome. Try something new every single month, right? It is rinsing, repeating. It's that repetition. So be really, really careful. I also had somebody, we do a 3-day virtual conference. I'm going to be probably doing it like 3 times a year, maybe. And I did one in May. And then I did one in September. And somebody that works on our team that was in our Instagram direct messages started reaching back out like, hi, it's Anna. I would love to invite you to this event. And the amount of people that said to her, oh, I already came in May, but thanks, right? That don't see the value. It's, first of all, it's free. It is jam packed. People have said I should be charging for it, which I should. It is literally a loaded conference. Okay. It's all about like how to really get yourself out of the day-to-day operations. And it's a 3-day event. And people have been like, oh, I already did it, but thanks. Right. And it's like, great. Imagine if you came and you liked it. You thought it was great. Yeah, it was amazing. Okay, great. Imagine if you re-listened 4 months later and you're in a different space. The things you had never heard of before, you've now heard of, and you can actually think about it and decide, do I want to do this? Do I not? So just be careful. Listen to this podcast again. There's something you didn't hear the first time. There's something that you were distracted by that you completely missed, right? So don't think volume and quantity is what you need. Sometimes it's truly like a few things over and over and over again. So Tony Robbins says, repetition is the mother of all skill. And he could not be more right, right? So if you want to get better at sales, what should you do? Take more sales calls, right? So anytime we have a new sales member, we never cancel anybody's call. So sometimes people are not qualified and we should cancel the call and let them know, hey, it doesn't look like we're going to be a good fit for you, okay? So when we have a new salesperson on the team, we don't cancel anything. Even if this person's like, I don't have a business, I have no money, and your program, like your stuff sucks. Like, I'm like, okay, you're going to keep it. For some reason, they signed up to talk to you. You're going to take it. And the reason I have them take all calls is because repetition will make them better. If I'm so particular, right, and they're only going to get a couple, it's going to be really, really hard for them to move forward and learn that skill set. Okay. If you want to get better at doing reels or posting on social media, make more reels, right? Post more on social media. If you want to get better at doing live video, do like a 30-day in a row live video challenge. Okay. So if you want to be better at building like funnels, marketing funnels, go build one a week, right? You need to do more of it if you want to get better. Now, here's something you need to know. Taking breaks is in between is never going to make you better. So if you're like, well, I'm just going to do this right now, and then I'm going to take a break for a little bit, you become rusty. It's kind of like when you take a break from working out and you just dread going back because you know how hard it's going to be. You need consistency. You need frequency if you want to master. So if you're like, I feel like I'm going to take a break on social media over the holidays, don't do it, right? Have somebody else do it. Okay. So when I hire somebody, I actually love bringing them in when it's the busy time of year. So in my studios, September is crazy when everybody's getting their children situated in the first week of classes. We used to purposely wait to bring somebody on until that mad rush was over. And we would bring them on, like, let's say September 25th. Okay. Now we say, we need you to start like the first week. Why? Because in day one, they already have figured out how to do that specific activity. So think when it slows down, it might take you 3 weeks to do something 10 times. In week one, you will do it 10 times in the first hour. So because of the frequency, they learn so much more. So don't be afraid. Like people will say, I need to hire, but we're way too busy to hire. I want to hire when we slow down. It's harder to train people when you slow down. It's also not real life. So when you're training them, they don't know how to work at a different speed. So when somebody comes in week one, life only gets easier for them. If you give them an easy week and then all of a sudden 4 weeks later, they experience the rush, it could be a lot for them to handle. Sometimes I'll say to a client, they'll have a negative mindset. I'm like, you know what mindset book you should read? And then I'll tell them something. And they go, oh, I already read that. I'm like, okay, read it again. I feel like you might have missed a few pieces of that book. So read it one more time and then read it again, like until it becomes your second nature, rinse and repeat. Until you're like, wait, what is it again? Key performance what? Like until you can say KPI and know exactly what it stands for, you haven't heard it enough times. All right, next up is really understanding how to master something before you diversify. So I think as creators, as visionaries, as like the founders, we get so excited about new ideas and doing something different. We don't like to be in the boring rinsing and repeating, right? I've had clients that say, my business feels boring. I was like, that's because it's easy. And you've been so used to being stressed out and overworked and overwhelmed that you're actually bored. And it's what you wish you would have had like 3 years ago. Like the 3 year ago person would have been like, don't ever say you're bored again. Like, be thankful, be grateful. Like, that's what we've been working for, right? So we get really nervous of being bored, getting complacent. And I will tell you that it takes a really a large amount of self-discipline to stay in mastery, to stay in maybe it getting a little bit more boring. There's nothing boring though about the money coming into your bank account, okay? Or how your life actually feels when talking about level of stress, okay? But no, it might not be as stressful, which feels like, what am I doing? Like, why does this feel so easy today? Okay. So really master before you diversify. So before you buy another book on Amazon, do you still have a stack sitting there of all these other books you said you were going to read, right? Or maybe the one book that really changed your life, go read it again, right? There are so many things you could be doing. So master before you diversify. Okay. Other places you can rinse and repeat. So the big one is your offerings, your product suite, your product, your program, your service. We call it your bestseller. Okay. So if you've been watching me for a while, podcast, YouTube, wherever, social media, you know my bestseller is Well-Oiled Operations. You're probably thinking, is she going to sell anything else ever again? No, it's going to be Well-Oiled Operations. Like, we have that. And then we have our next level up, which usually people go from Well-Oiled to Powerhouse. And that's it. Those are our two offerings. And we're going to take those two to 10 million and beyond. We're not planning on adding more. We're just planning on making it better. So Well-Oiled is getting better results. People, like, the program itself is getting better because we're refining the curriculum. We're also learning how to get our clients better results, how to get them faster ROI. So the more we rinse and repeat, the easier it is to sell, because we're getting better data. We're getting more retention, higher renewals, higher upsells. So if you keep new product, you have to think of new marketing. You have to think of new fulfillment systems, new customer onboarding systems. With me, I don't have to think of new. I have to just try to outdo what I'm already doing, which means little tweaks, refining. Again, it can feel boring, right? You're like, this is it. This is all I have to do this week is change like one little thing and split test it and then wait 7 days to see what happened. Sometimes, yeah. And sometimes that can change my revenue by a lot of money. Okay. So slow down and let your business get a little bit boring. Okay. So here's what I mean by that. When clients say, hey, I tried this, but it didn't work. To me, I'm like, you tried it once. You gave it a 2-week preparation. It took me 4 weeks to prepare for it. Right? You did it twice as fast, yet you're expecting like my same results. So try it again. Take that information. What happened? Track that data. Try it again. Try to outperform yourself. Try to beat yourself. I have done a weekly live training every week for over a year. Do you know how much better that training is today than it was a year ago? The content is better. The number of people we get to show up is better. The number of people we get to book calls with us and apply is better. And it's because every week I'm making 1 or 2 minor adjustments. If you're constantly in like new creation, you're not making minor adjustments. You're overwhelming yourself. So the one and done habit has to go. When you commit to something, commit to doing it at a masterful level. All right, so I hope this gets you thinking differently about the content you already know, the ideas in your head, the knowledge that you've already consumed from a podcast or a conference or whatever it is. It is time to figure out why you're not implementing that information and imagine what you could do if you actually started to take action and get it done. All right. If you have yet to apply to our Powerhouse Mastermind and you qualify, meaning you're at multiple 6 figures a year or more, you have a team of 3 or more, and you are shooting for 7 or 8 figures next year. Yes, we have currently 7 and figure entrepreneurs in our program. Then you can go to smallbusinesspowerhouse.com and apply. The application will be there, and you'll actually talk to somebody on our team and we'll find out if you're a good fit. It's a completely free, no obligation call, but they'll let you know if they really believe that the Powerhouse Mastermind would benefit you this year. Just another way to really commit to that rinsing, repeating, that mastery, and getting around other people that are committed to doing it too could be a massive game changer for you next year.